one of the things that we've been talking about as Holistiplan in the month of January, and we're recording this at the beginning of January, is how tax planning is really a year-round sport. I just use the example of reviewing a tax return, which is a very distinct point in time. But I would love to hear about how you look at tax planning throughout the year and not just in those moments of the client asks you, here's my return. They usually don't even ask. You ask them, can I look at your return? And maybe some end of year stuff that we traditionally think of as tax planning. What is your tax planning process as you look at, maybe break it out by quarters, how you approach the year with clients?
Hmm.
Well, so one of the things is that we come up with the strategy of really trying to pull things in. So many times people do a lot of things either right with the client when they're meeting with the client or reviewing the return or towards the end of the year. And then we pull a lot of things into January. So one of the things that we do is we do all of our RMDs in Q1. And there's a couple of different logics for that. One is that by doing the RMDs early, and then if something happens and the client passes away, then you don't have a problem with the beneficiaries filling out a tax return where it says, have you taken the RMD? And they don't even know what it is. And they can check yes, and it actually be true. So, one of the things is to do the RMDs early in the year. We also do often QCDs out of the RMDs, but also other QCDs for people that might not even be taking RMDs. And we also even try to we actually work a lot with our clients on their charitable strategy, gifting strategy. We try to get them to have an annual gifting strategy, and then we try to do that annual gifting strategy using stock or QCDs out of their IRAs in Q1 and start to get them, because it doesn't really matter when they deliver, since most people are doing standard deductions anyway.
Our overall high-level strategy is to try and nurture a collaborative relationship with our client's tax professional and make their job easy. And so for the subset of our clients whose tax professionals are willing to do that, which is most, we use box.com, and we actually share a folder, and it's just so much easier. We push all the 1099s and all the raw data that they need from the custodian to prepare their return. And at the end, they download the completed tax return into the shared folder. And from a data security perspective, doing that on a secure folder instead of on PDFs over email, which is just wrong on lots of levels, is a much better approach.
Yeah, great. Okay, that's I have not heard of that before, but sitting collaboratively with the CPA, avoiding that situation where it could potentially become confrontational when the client is playing telephone between these two entities. I like that a lot. I've not heard of that before. That's an interesting idea. So
it helps us get our tax returns faster in Q2.
Yeah, maybe so. Yeah, get these people out of my office. So moving forward to Q2, I think one of the obvious ones is just reviewing of tax returns. What do you try to focus on in Q2 as we're getting those returns back for at least the April 15th filers?
Basically, what we really do is we just actually get the returns back and upload them, and we, make sure that the tax carry forward is introduced into our rebalancing software, whatever the capital gains tax loss carry forward is. But more of what we do is we basically do an administrative deal of getting them uploaded, and then when they have their annual review, we do a downtown deal with the clients. So we have actually put together a Word document that is a tax planning checklist. Tim, I don't know if you've got that up for us to share, but anyway, we go through this tax planning checklist and essentially use it in conjunction with the Holistiplan tax report. And we have to, it's a manual process of sitting there and thinking through the client's situation against their tax report and trying to determine what are the things that really either are already happening with the client or we should be recommending to the client. And so we have a tax strategies slide in the annual review where we go through all the different things.
So you use a product like Holistiplan to help with the first level of detail, but then you also have a checklist to make sure you're just covering all the bases, and that when you have that conversation, you've covered everything. You use both in concert with each other. Is that what I'm hearing?
Correct.
Yep.
And the checklist is a good tool for us because it helps us have a consistent and systematic approach towards turning over all the rocks to make sure that we're taking advantage of all the opportunities. So, for example, our approach of working with clients is we won't take on a wealth management client till we've done a comprehensive plan. And in the course of doing a comprehensive plan, we might find out that they have employer stock in their 401k, or they made non-deductible contributions to an IRA 15 years ago, and they've been dragging that basis around all the time. So those are opportunities, but you have to look hard to find them. But the value that you can provide by taking advantage of the NUA strategy or pushing their IRA back into their 401k and separating the coffee from the cream and getting that Roth back out, which you can only do through an active employer plan, is a worthwhile thing. But you have to know to ask the right questions to even find out that those things are in fact true.
And leave breadcrumbs from your past self to your future self to remember
Yes.
that there's this thing that's ongoing, that we're pursuing this multi-year strategy potentially. Yeah.
Yes, by making a milestone in your CRM that says, before we let this client quit, we're going to push their IRA back in.
There you go. Okay. So marching forward into Q3 and Q4, what are your second half of the year activities on tax planning that you're focusing on?
Well, in Q3, we again continue to get the tax returns. We review any pending tax legislation, and we do a second pass at any potential Roth conversions. You know, if we have any new clients or anything we've done. But I think I'd like to just talk about, because you know we're sitting here now really having all their new tax returns, and we're starting to have all these annual reviews. And I just want to talk about the things that we talk with them about in those annual review meetings, because that's really where we go through the detail and the collaboration with the clients. So it's not just this tax planning strategies checklist that I talked about, but also we then talk with the clients about whether Roth conversions make sense for them or not. So we find that this is a collaborative process in conjunction with using the tax planning software that you provide to try to determine what exactly that conversion should be, being concerned particularly about the IRMA and the other concerns, with what would happen if we did a Roth conversion, and also trying to make sure we have the best understanding possible of their future income for the year. And then we talk about the ACA premium subsidy planning, so that can they get the healthcare subsidy or not, and how do we make sure that we don't add to their capital gains and put them over a threshold that doesn't really work. We also talked to them about estate tax planning and end of life planning, having to do with, we just had a client yesterday actually that, the mother is, in their late 80s, has dementia, has a very small IRA, and, it's going to go to the heirs. And so we're looking at, well, maybe we do a Roth conversion for her so that she pays the taxes, and then they don't have to inherit something that they have to drain in 10 years. And so we talk about that at the annual review. And then efficiently replenish their cash flow. Like each year we do a 2-year tax bracket. We try to make sure that they've replenished their cash for 2 years. And so we try to figure out where the best place is to pull it from, an IRA, if we're trying to drain that faster, for instance, or from their taxable accounts or whatever.
Okay. Well, we've reached Q4. If
Right.
we're willing to go back to our calendar approach to looking at it.
So Q4, we verify the RMD for clients that we've onboarded, was taken, because when you're pulling accounts over from other places, you have to make sure that RMD was actually taken. We also just do one last pass about inherited IRAs, make sure those RMDs for new accounts, or even for existing clients who inherited an IRA during the year, to make sure that we've got that handled. And then we do tax loss harvesting as appropriate.
Yeah. And so, yeah, actually, a lot of folks do cram a lot more into Q4 than y'all do. Like that sounds like a more manageable way to run Q4, because I think a lot of people, when you factor in loss harvesting, plus doing all your RMDs at the end of the year, plus looking at all your Roth conversions at the end of the year, that's a lot to shove all together. Now, for some clients, if you don't really know, if the income is lumpy, you may not have all the information you need until the end of the year. Of course, those are the ones, but
Right. So
it,
then we manage those by exception.
right.
Right.
But yeah, your lives in December are probably a lot better than a lot of your colleagues, I would say.
And you're right, and that's the benefit of front end loading those activities. And we think of Q4 as basically scrub the data, validate, make sure we didn't miss anything, right? Because missing an RMD is another unforced error and having to explain why they have that 50% penalty. It's like, let's not go there. Um, and then, as Peggy mentioned, making sure that all the clients that we onboarded over the course of the year we've checked all the boxes for them as well. Because a lot of our clients like to do their reviews in the fourth quarter. So it frees up our time bandwidth, which is the only resource we have to focus on doing reviews, not back office tax planning.